Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Batter, a podcast about how brands, business owners, and entrepreneurs rise. I'm your host, Jill Miller of Vera Creative, a small marketing firm in the Chicagoland area, where I'm also a part-time instructor of an advertising course at St. Xavier University. Join me as I hang out and talk to people who know all about the ingredients to success and the recipes for disaster. All right, everybody, thanks for listening in. Today I'm here with Beth Glover of JoyFire Designs. Welcome, Beth.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So let's talk about JoyFire. Tell me a little bit about it.
So JoyFire is a home decor and lifestyle brand that I created to put my designs. I'm an artist, an abstract artist, watercolor artist, and it's a brand that I created to really get my designs out on products. And so the core belief behind JoyFire is that art and beauty have the power to transform, and that, what other place than, in your home where, it's supposed to be your safe spot, would you want art and beauty that to kind of inspire you every day or improve your attitude. And so that's really the crux of what's behind, trying to put my designs on products through JoyFire is, just to inspire people in the home and create artful designs that, will hopefully just like improve people's lives.
I can really appreciate that as somebody who works from home. There's days where I maybe don't even, really leave the home, especially in cold Chicagoland winters. And I was just talking with my mother-in-law on Mother's Day about the fact that when you work from home, your surroundings become really important, and the beauty of it and what it looks like, or any nuances. If you have a home project that you're doing and it's not finished yet and you're in the house all day staring at it, it's driving you crazy. So I can really appreciate what you're saying about art and beauty coming together in your home to help inspire, especially in my line of work, which is fairly creative. I want to be inspired by my surroundings. So that's great. That's really awesome that is the passion behind JoyFire. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I guess that would be the why, and I think that I'm the same way, that what you said about like being at home and working from home. I work from home as well, and I think your environment just has such a impact on just everything, and you don't realize it sometimes until you are in that spot where you're like, oh, this office is driving me crazy, or this, this wall, this ugly wall, or whatever it is, Even just yesterday, I reorganized my office for like the gajillionth time because I can't seem to like get work done if I'm like feel like my environment isn't in a kind of a peaceful, aesthetically pleasing place. So
I agree. I was just going to ask you when you got started, how long you've been doing this.
So actually, as we're recording this, it is May 12th, and it was May 20th, 2018, so 2 years ago almost, that I officially like incorporated and really decided, I'm gonna create this brand and really try to give it a go with like my art and business and commerce. And so it's only been 2 years, which in some ways it feels like it has been a long time. And in other ways it feels like I cannot, I can't even believe it's been 2 years, So, so we're coming up on 2 years of like celebrating being incorporated and, pivoting a million times. And
well, happy anniversary. Yeah. Happy 2-year anniversary. Yeah. Take me back 2 years ago when you were starting the business. How'd you come up with the name JoyFire? I'm looking at your logo right now on your website, joyfiredesigns.com. It's beautiful. I love it. So tell me a little bit about the logo and the name and where the inspiration for that came from.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a redhead, so people usually think it has to do with the fact that I have like red hair and like fiery, the reputation that goes with that. But it actually doesn't. Not that I'm opposed to that, connection, because I do think it is very much the name and the logo are very much grounded in me as an artist. And like I said, I am right now the only person running JoyFire, and all the designs are mine. And so I really was trying to think of what would capture people. But also when I was 15, somebody spoke of a very encouraging thing over me about how I was, in life I was meant to be a flame of joy. And I was going through something and was kind of in a low spot, and it has just always, I'm not there now, but it just has always stuck with me. And so when I actually was trying to brainstorm brand names, because I also have a website, BethGloverCreates.com, and that's more of a catch-all for all the artistic endeavors I do. But JoyFire, I was I need a brand. Beth Glover Creates doesn't really roll off the tongue, when you're talking about a product or a pillow. I mean, it's more like a functional, LLC title, that's really what it was about. It's supposed to capture all the creative endeavors I do, because I do a lot of different stuff. But I was I need a brand name. So I actually was brainstorming with my mom, because she, remembered this time in my life and that story. And so we just started kind of word associating and thinking back on that memory. And it just we really liked the impact of it. We felt like it kind of communicates my core belief, which is, that art and beauty does have the power to transform and kind of impact us on a daily level and on a kind of a soul level, but also, that I'm a part of that, and my designs and my purpose in life, and, that there's there's joy that I want to spread through my art and through everyday products. And then there's also, I want to spread a JoyFire. So it just kind of morphed through the brainstorming process. But, when you strike something, you just kind of are yeah, that has something to it. So
yeah,
I ran with it.
That's a great story. Something so inspiring and wonderful could come from what that person was saying. I'm sure they had no idea that would come from that. And that's just something nice for us all to remember. I think that words are really powerful, and we never know what might result as a what might come from positive words that we speak to somebody. That's great. I love it. Yeah. So before, did you have a career that kind of set you up for this? Were you working for another designer and then went out on your own? Or what was your history, your career background prior to becoming an entrepreneur?
My previous career did prepare me in some ways, but it was not in art or design. It was actually in communications. I was a television producer for documentary-style shows or reality shows. And I reality has a certain connotation, so documentary style is probably more accurate.
Oh, that's the PC term I didn't know. Okay.
Well, it is within the industry, or that's how I like to tell people, because really what it was is it's unscripted television. So scripted television is, for your listeners who don't know, is what the popular network shows that, somebody's written a script and then they go and shoot it, versus unscripted is, or documentary style is based on real people and real situations. And that doesn't mean there's not a plan, but, right. Or a script that comes together after you shoot. But, we all have to figure out the storytelling points and things like that. But in these days, reality TV can be a little bit, depending on the show and the network and just how it's changed through the years, it can be a little bit more scripted. So I'm certainly not saying that, all reality or all documentary style shows are or don't have that component. But anyways, it was, I did that for 11 years. I worked in television production and post-production for a company in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm based in North Carolina. still.
Was that your first job out of college then?
Yes, actually, I was hired. So I interned there my senior year, or like my last 2 semesters, and I really liked the company. I really liked the people. I was very intrigued. I had no idea what a producer was, nor did I, for a while. But I just kind of was very intrigued by storytelling and creativity and getting to tell real stories. And so I interned with sales and marketing, actually, because I was a mass communications major with a specialty in advertising in college, and so, or a concentration, that's the word. And so I had kind of already figured out I didn't want to work in an ad agency, but I was very intrigued by like a production company and, like I said, real stories and storytelling and even commercials. I mean, it's interesting. So I'm
very interested in it. I think a lot of people are very interested in it. And, we talked about this prior, but I think it is a lot of people. It might not be their dream job, but a lot of people would think that it's just a cool job. Like there's really no other way to say it, but just like, wow, that's really awesome. And they'd really want to pick your brain about that. And I'm sure you get people who want to pick your brain about that. And I do, but maybe on another podcast. It was a cool job, and it still is a cool job for anybody who's doing it or interested, but it's also a hard job. And very deadline driven, very cutthroat's not the right word, or at least that wasn't my experience. I didn't work in LA or New York, which tend to get the reputation for being more cutthroat markets for that industry. But it just was very all-consuming because of the deadline-driven nature of it. Production cycles, this is probably the part that people don't realize is not glamorous, is like as a producer, I was responsible for the entire success of the show. You're kind of the glue. People often would ask, what does a producer do? And it's like, what don't we do? You're communicating with the network, who is the client. You're communicating with the talent, the people on camera. You're communicating with the crew. You're communicating with the whole production team that's helping you put together a successful shoot. And so communication is extremely important. But also, you're that funnel, and you're that one person. And then as I grew in my career, I became responsible for the budget as well, and all of the creative on top of, and working with the editors and the post-production teams. And there's just so many facets. And it's one of my favorite things about that industry is the teamwork, but the producer is kind of, at least in reality TV, it's probably different in the film industry, or even with scripted shows. But in the case of, my role, there was just so much that, I was responsible for, which was cool when I was building my career. But then as I really kind of got into, my late 20s, early 30s, and just started to just feel like I really don't have anything outside of my and a life outside of my career. And it just wasn't, I just realized my identity was kind of getting wrapped up in what my job was. And that wasn't, I had other goals in life in addition to that. So, anyway, so I'm sort of rambling, but my point is that there's just so much that goes into, even a reality show. I mean, people think you just show up and shoot real life, but no, there's hours and hours and hours of work that go into it, beginning, middle, and end. And then, sometimes, when you're working on a show that you hope will go to series, a pilot, more often than not, they don't go to series. And so that's very discouraging too, when you spend all of your time and energy and creative abilities to try to, bring something into the I guess the world, and then it gets, it gets rejected essentially. And that's how it goes. That's part of it. I'm not necessarily criticizing the process, but for me, because I was putting everything into,
my career in that way and in my job. And that's just the type of person I am. I'm kind of like, I'm going to do everything 110%, so that's not to say that that's everyone's experience in the industry, but so this is something that is like, I don't want to make it sound like, there are so many good people and so many good roles, and it's a very cool job too. But for me, it was like I was ready to, just do something else, because
maybe a little burned out towards the end. Yeah,
burnout, but I had already tried to dial it back, at multiple times, and and it's also a very cyclical business, and so there's production cycles and series cycles and new orders, and I was in the position where, like, I knew if I didn't kind of take the opportunity to think through, like, where am I going, and just take a break, pause mentally, and go, wait, what do I want? And that's really what happened. Is I was on track for more and more promotions, and and I just kind of stopped and thought, hey, wait a minute. I've been just taking promotion after promotion, and again, love the company I worked with, love the people. Even the job was great. I got to travel. There was so much that was good about it. But for me, I just realized I had been saying yes to all these things through the years, to the point where I didn't even realize, like, I no longer really felt like I had control over my destiny, or the term I used when I chose to leave was, like, I just needed to redesign my life, which is interesting because I didn't even know I was going to go into design. I knew I was going to rely on my art. I knew I was like, I want to make a business out of my art. But I didn't have, like, a business plan. I just was like, I need to, but that's how tired I was, like, I just didn't have time to dream.
It wasn't necessarily the transition. You knew you might end that career, but the transition to what the next step might be wasn't necessarily, from a business point of view, planned entirely. It doesn't sound like.
It wasn't. No, I knew, and that's the thing is, I knew I needed several months to just figure it out. And so I plans for that. Like, I knew that. And I knew I would figure it out. I just was like, I can't even, like, update my resume, Like, I just was, like, so tired. So I actually left my job in January of 2018. And then it wasn't until really, I was always researching different things, but it wasn't really until April when I went to High Point Market, which is the home furnishing, like, it's like the largest trade show for the home furnishings industry, and for furniture, and it's about 25 minutes away from where I live. So I went just to explore, because at the recommendation of my aunt, who is a former product designer and creative director in that space, and I had told her I was interested in doing art and design, and this was part of the process of figuring it out, and so she said, well, you should go to all these different trade shows and just walk them and see what industry you're interested in and see what, and so that was some great advice, because this is where the TV kind of connects, the TV job. So I went just kind of, I brought handmade cards. Like, I painted, like, literally the night before, I was like, well, I guess I should have some cards or something in case, someone wants to keep in touch. So I actually painted watercolor, like, paper, cut it up, and hand wrote my name and number and email address on the back. And that was, can I tell you, that was, like, such a huge success. People, like, loved it, because, like, this is handmade, I guess, But
your last-minute thrown-together business cards made a splash at a trade show. And for anyone who doesn't know trade shows, it's hard to make a splash. It's hard to catch somebody's attention. So way to go. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. Trade shows are about selling. So, like, I was essentially going as an observer. I wasn't going to buy anything. Yes, it is hard to make connections. And we can get back to that because I think that's part of my success, or success in quotes. I'm still in process, but anyways, so to tie it back to the previous career, because I think that was your question about 5 minutes ago, like where I came from and if that prepared me for becoming an entrepreneur. I went to that trade show, and it occurred to me that a company I had just a year prior shot a little segment with, actually a Chicago-based company, they're a wallpaper company named Mitchell Black. It occurred to me that they may have a showroom there, because they're certainly in the home furnishing space. And so I actually looked it up, and they were, and I thought, okay, I'll just stop by and connect. I knew the owner from shooting and from television production, and so I showed up, and sure enough, she was there, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me. She's like, of course I remember you, because it's not like they have people come and shoot all the time. But I basically was just like, well, I'm not doing television anymore, but I am doing this. I'm just trying to license my designs, do art as a career, and figure out what the best ways are. But do you guys ever license with artists, and would you be interested in talking more? And she was like, oh yeah, and so I gave her one of my cards, and honestly, like, it was probably like a month later maybe, and she reached out and was like, hey, I have some ideas for how we can incorporate your art into, like, a new product we're launching. And I was just like, this was probably in like early May kind of thing. So 2 years ago. And like, that really set me on this path of, like, I was like, oh my, it just gave me so much confidence, and that, like, just from my little card, and she knew me, of course, the relationship, but it wasn't like we were, like, got to spend a lot of time together. But, that really, like, helped me start to craft my business and realize that, like, I could, like, do art and design as a business. And I know that sounds silly, but I was coming from a place of, I'm a self-taught artist, and I always took art classes growing up, or took workshops, in the limited free time I did have, and that kind of stuff. But, like, I didn't go to school, I didn't get a degree in it. And so for me, part of the journey of leaving television, exploring how to turn my passion for art into a career and, money-making thing, was having to say and introduce myself as an artist, which took some time. It really took me a while to feel comfortable saying it, because I'm sure it's the same for all entrepreneurs. Like, sometimes you're just like, oh, I never thought about, like, labeling myself that way, or, because you're sort of finding your footing, So
Right.
anyways, that, I feel like I should let you ask more questions, but that was sort of, I mean, I'm so grateful for that relationship. I still work with them. I have wallpaper with them. And so, that was just, like, they were very important, like, first, like, relationship, and first, like, they believed in my art before I even really realized it, had value, or what kind of value it might have had. I knew it had value, but, I didn't have it all figured out.
So definitely there was a connect. Not that you used the connection, but you were able to reconnect with somebody from your previous job that really opened the door for you in a way that not only did it give you that contract, but it gave you that confidence to step into the artist's world and the artist's role and call yourself an artist, which I think is really fascinating. I wanted to tell you a story way back when you were talking about TV pilots, because I thought it just brought me back to actually an experience that I had on a TV pilot, and I think that you'll find this story very funny. So there was a pilot being filmed, and they were following around a woman who happened to take yoga classes at a yoga studio that I teach at. And so they came to film her, and I happened to be teaching the class that she was taking that day. And so we're filming. I'm teaching, trying to act normal, but I was excited on the inside. Like, I thought that was pretty cool. And the studio that I work at is it's very established studio. It's wonderful. I feel like I have to say it's very clean because of the way the story is going. It was really outlandish what happened. I was towards the back of the room, and there was like a giant bug. I mean, giant. And I am the type of person that screams the highest pitched scream when there's a spider or a bug in my house, and I have to put on like my super tall rubber rain boots and get like a broom and then smash the bug with the broom or step on him with my giant boots, or I'm terrified, okay? So I see this giant bug, and I'm like, I can't scream, obviously. I have to contain my terror, and I kind of like tapped one of another teacher. I believe she was a teacher at the time. I kind of tapped her on the shoulder and pointed to the direction of the bug, trying not to make like a big commotion and trying to still teach at the same time. And she kind of stood up and was like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And another student noticed the commotion, and she got up, she took her water bottle and just went over and smashed the bug. And I was like, oh my gosh, this never happens in this studio. I've never seen a bug inside this studio in my life. Like, it was almost like a cockroach. Like, it was giant. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, we're ruining this pilot. We're ruining this poor person's chances of getting on TV. Like, what are we doing? This is just ridiculous. And then the other thing at the end was, when we get students into the final relaxation pose and everybody's laying on their mat and they have their eyes closed and the teacher sits up front and teacher also kind of partakes in meditation with them, I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, and all of a sudden I open my eyes and literally the camera is probably an inch from my face. And I didn't even know that the camera person was there. And I opened my eyes and like, there's the camera. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was not ready for that at all. Needless to say, I don't think that it's coming out as a show anytime soon. And I really hope it was not because of that awful footage in the yoga space. But that just took me back because, I'm sure you saw some crazy, ridiculous things too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I can say as a producer, I probably would have liked that sequence because you don't want everything to go according to plan or be,
right.
Like it shows personality, and so like that, I know that it wasn't just about you, so it may not have, I don't think you ruined the series or the pilot.
Right. Well, you're right. It wasn't about me, but I was like, man, you as a teacher and somebody, and you don't want to make an idiot out of yourself, right? That's not
right.
a camera. You want to try and be natural and have as a yoga teacher, you always want to have a good class and say the right thing, but there's extra pressure when there's a camera in the room, and someone's trying to get on TV as a result. But yeah, anyways, I just thought I don't ever think about that story. And then when we were talking about pilots, I was like, oh hey, I was part of a pilot once. That just reminded me. Yeah, that didn't go so well. How embarrassing. But getting back to you and JoyFire Designs, I'm wondering if you could tell our listeners, and me as well, if you could educate us a little bit on what goes into the process of how you get that B2B contract or the licensing. Mm-hmm. I don't even know the proper term for it. So you can, if you could dive into that, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, like I mentioned, because I have a wonderful mentor and family member who, my aunt, Betsy, she has worked, she's an artist as well, but worked for years as a creative director and a product designer for tabletop products and basically anything useful that had design to it. So plates and wine, marker bottle, wine glass markers and cheese knives and all that kind of stuff, So growing up, I kind of knew that there was a commercial aspect for artists. But, obviously we've already discussed my previous career. I went that way for a while. So when I decided to I just always knew that, like, there was an option to potentially license, and licensing is the term. And so, but I'd never done it, obviously. I will say in television, another way that connects is, that we used to license music. Like some of the shows I worked on, it's now public domain, but you had to license Happy Birthday.
Oh, wow.
So some of the shows I worked on had a lot of people who had birthdays, so like we licensed it a lot. And so like there's that kind of stuff. So I knew enough from my television days and creative days that, like, anything creative, any creative product, whether it's art or music or photography, we license photographs, for usage on TV. Like, I knew enough about it to know, like, okay, this is a thing. And now it totally varies in terms of what the royalty percentage. So the way licensing works, there's a couple different, really the contracts will lay out a lot of different things. But basically, and you can negotiate on those things, and so there's a lot of variables. But essentially, there's usually a scale per industry. And so in the home furnishings industry, I want to say what I've heard quoted is, generally anywhere from 3 to 7% of net sales. But
that's what you take in?
Yeah. So like every sale they make, you would get 3 to 7% of the sale. So
is that lower than you thought it would be? Or higher than you thought it would be?
I had no concept really of what the scale would be, because it does vary so much from industry to industry. So most deals I've learned through doing several of these, kind of the standard is like a 2-year agreement. So they have 2 years from when you sign the thing to kind of market it, and so that's the duration. Of course, you can always extend it or amend it. But I would say, like, honestly, like, aside from just knowing it was a thing, like, I've really just had to learn through going through it. And I will say the very first deal, or the contract I got, I hired a lawyer to kind of go over it with me and explain everything to me, because I knew enough to, like, be dangerous, like, but obviously, like, I didn't want to get taken advantage of. And not that
that's smart.
I generally don't work with people that I have I wouldn't license my designs if I had a bad feeling, like, I'm a very intuitive person. So, and so obviously, and I've already shared that, like, the company, my first deal was with Mitchell Black, and they were wonderful. So I wasn't worried. I was just trying to be wise, and sure enough, I mean, they offered me a great deal, and even the attorney I hired. So, not every attorney is fit for intellectual property and royalties, so I did hire somebody that looks at these contracts a lot, and so even that is important, like, if one of your listeners out there wants to do something like this, I would say they absolutely can. You just need to make sure you surround yourself with, like, enough, like, with the right people who do know what they're talking about, because
100%. Yep.
Yeah, because
I have examples of people who didn't do that, and wasted a lot of money and years of time just by getting the wrong people on board, or trusting the wrong people with certain aspects of the business. And so it's absolutely a great idea to surround yourself with the right people the first time around, if you can help it, because some mistakes will be made. But I agree. That's a really good point.
One thing, because I don't feel like I've dove into it very well yet, one thing I would say, like, just for people who are interested in even, like, just being aware that it's an option. I think be aware that things take longer. It can take a year or 18 months to even see a royalty check because of production cycles, and it depends on the market and the company and the production cycle, like what product it is. Like there's so many things. Whereas like in TV, we were like licensing something to air very quickly, you know, like so for music or something, it was different. But for what I have noticed for my designs and in the home furnishings industry, I mean, it can take about a year, sometimes even before they actually put it to market. And so it is not something that, like, as of yet, is like paying all my bills or anything. It's just an additional revenue stream that I do like having, and that I like. I enjoy the work too. I enjoy, like, whereas with JoyFire, I'm responsible for all the products, all the production, you know, and I like that too. I like having a little bit of control over that. But it is nice to have the second option with licensing my designs to another company. They handle all the marketing. They handle all the promotion. It's their products. And then if you team up with the right ones, they're very flexible to, like, include your name and help promote your brand like as a collaboration. And so that has been really great for me. And especially, you know, only being just now 2 years into it, like I am still a very young company and young kind of emerging designer, I would say. So I think I'm not that young, but I'm you know, green, I should say, or just emerging. Emerging probably sounds better. But so for anybody who is interested in, just, you know, there's definitely materials out there too that I got a hold of. There's now is a great time to be an artist or a designer or an entrepreneur. There's just so many resources, and so it's just a matter of finding out, like, you know, who's teaching that online course or who's teaching, because that's the other thing is, like, I had to learn. I was an artist, but I also had to learn how to, like, do patterns, you know, because a lot of people are wanting to buy repeat patterns with in this particular industry. So, or in terms of licensing. So there's definitely, like, been a learning curve, but I feel like take
me through the process. Oh, finish, yes.
Well, all I was going to say is, like, in terms of how you go about getting it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or meeting that person that is the decision maker or is the person you need. I would say, like, you have to use your personality, right? And so, like, I'm a person, and this is why I enjoy producing. I'm a person that loves people. I love conversations and understanding people and interpersonal communication. So for me, while I don't consider myself like a salesperson at all, and it's still scary to go into a trade show, not know anybody, and, like, walk in and introduce yourself and try. But I did feel like, you know, once I get talking with people, I can, you know, usually just, like, make a connection or and I don't mean that to sound arrogant. It's just utilizing, you know, my interest and my personality. So I knew that I would be able to, like, well, actually, I didn't know going into that first High Point market at all, like, what would happen. But I think that now I pretty much go to that market every time. And unfortunately, it was canceled this spring.
Oh, right.
Yeah, due to COVID. But I think that really assessing, like, you know, those trade shows, I think that's so valuable because I'm in some communities with other designers that are in different stages of their career as well. Some are further ahead than me, and some are, you know, just starting. And there is a process of, like, pitching your portfolio, getting, like, cold calling the art directors at these companies and whatever the industry is, and, like, you know, hoping that they select your stuff. But I feel if you can get in front of somebody at like a trade show and make an impression, then they're going to remember you as opposed to like someone they talked to on the phone once or got something mailed to them, and they're just being inundated, with calls. So for me, that might not work for somebody who's extremely introverted and doesn't feel comfortable. But for me, that was huge. And so that would be my biggest, I think my biggest ticket to success is just or recipe. Is that ingredient?
Yeah.
Ingredient for success would be just don't be afraid to show up. I mean, just showing up is half of it. Even though I was scared. I mean, even though I'm an extrovert and I'm a people person, nobody likes to walk into a room they don't really know someone, and especially I'm not going to buy anything, I'm not their target market. But what I found is just by striking up an organic conversation or just, being interested in their product and just talking to them, you could quickly get a sense of oh, do you guys do licensing, and are you interested in talking or not, and some people, for the most part though, the decision makers are there. So I do recommend to people, if you're going to make a career switch, definitely walk a show, because there's trade shows in every industry. So, this is not specific to just licensing or design, but I do feel that if you can, create a connection and a relationship early, that you're already more set up for success. Because what is that Maya Angelou quote that people don't always remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. Yep. So it works both ways, right? That would be my first advice of just how to go about, would be figure out what industry, what company, and then you can't possibly visit them all, at trade shows, but just, make a quick hit list, and then just show up, and see what happens, and be willing to be shot down or to talk or whatever happens. And then in terms of the actual contract, so it can work a couple different ways. I've had it where the company that wants to license designs from me, so I would be the licensor because I own all of my designs because I made them. I'm the artist. And so I'm the one licensing to the licensee. So so I've had it where the licensee has a standard kind of agreement that they have used, and they send it over, and then you start to look at it and figure out okay, this is what, what they're asking for or what, they're used to, and then you can start the process of either requesting revisions or, negotiating whatever term you want to use. I've always, especially since I'm still building my career in this revenue stream and in licensing, I do negotiate a little bit, but I try not to I don't want to wear anybody out, because I'm just thrilled to be, collaborating with brands that I really like and that I feel are in my market. That's the other thing is there's a whole array of companies that would license X, Y, or Z, but you may not align with them philosophically, or their market. And so that was the other thing is sometimes I look at who is their market and who is JoyFire's market and Beth Glover is an artist market. You know what I mean? Who do I want to be in? And I want to be in with high-end luxury products and designers, interior designers, and that consumer that would. So for me, I'm looking at those types of companies versus your Bed Bath & Beyond, which I'm not putting Bed Bath & Beyond down. I'm just saying they're different. And I would say too, people should expect, while I've mostly worked with more boutique companies thus far, I will say that I've heard larger box stores and those kinds of companies, you're going to get a much lower percentage. You might get a 1% royalty, but think about the volume they're doing, so it's definitely not to say I wouldn't do that, but there's a whole scale, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have I answered your question?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was just curious, and it sounds like there's some pitching, there's some cold calling, there's a lot of networking that goes on, and where your networking is at a lot of trade shows, or it was previously.
Yes. Yes, and the other thing that I did that I don't know if it contributed, I guess I could ask, is I honestly think like your personality or your just the feeling people get with you and then your work should kind of speak for themselves. But I did send a care package to the Mitchell Black, the wallpaper company, like right after the market, and basically just said like, so great to reconnect. I sent them like a bunch of stuff from my town, you know, cookies and coffee and, you know, just, for their office. And because I had been there, I kind of knew about how many people were there and like the setup, you know. And so, again, I don't know if that tipped the scale or anything like that, but I think little touches like that, again, that just goes to the point of like, so if you're not someone that's going to show up at a trade show or you can't afford to fly or go wherever that trade show may be, like, I still think that you can do something to set yourself apart and to say, hey, I'm a nice person who also does great work. And that's the thing. I made a handmade, like, kind of like a little conversation bubble that I wrote on. And it just like I did with my handmade cards, I just kind of like was like, let me just use every opportunity I can to be excited, enthusiastic, encouraging, and just try to get my art in front of a company I want to work with.
Those types of things are very memorable, and I think no matter who you are or what you're selling, whether it be a service or a product, you have to be memorable because people, like you said, they're talking to so many people every day. They're seeing so many brands every day, and you have to take the time to stand out. Even if you're submitting a job resume, it's the same type of strategy, right? Just what's the thing you're going to put on there that's going to stand out, that's really going to jump off the page and make your application memorable. Exactly. I think that translates into almost any job or career for sure. So with JoyFire and the e-commerce site, we talked about what goes into getting contracts, but what's kind of the marketing and the advertising, or what have you found that works to drive traffic to your site so that people can buy your products directly from you?
Yeah, well, I'm like still figuring it all out because e-commerce is, on the one hand, it is so, awesome that you can be an artist or a designer and make your own products and just make a site. But then on the other hand, you have so much competition. So I have tried a bunch of different things. I have an Instagram and Facebook site. I feel like, especially the visual nature of what I do, I have to be on those two platforms. I've heard really good things about Pinterest. To be honest, because I'm a one-man or woman show, it's like hard to manage it all.
If I could interject on that's a really good point, because I tell clients the same thing. We need to do the things that you can keep up on. There's no point in being on every single social media platform and then letting them go dormant for 2-3 weeks. That's pointless. Just do the ones that you can do a really good job at. And so that's, what you're saying,
I can probably take some of your advice.
I think you're right on track so far. Because there's a lot of people that are going to be like, oh, you have to be on Pinterest. It's like, well, no, you don't have to be. You have to be in the places where you can do the best job and just stay consistent, because consistency is huge with marketing.
Yeah, that's good. It's good for you to like reaffirm that, because I definitely am one of those people that I'm always listening to a podcast or a like webinar. I definitely click on those Facebook ads about, like improving your email list and all, so like I'm one of those people that like signs up for those like free, webinars and stuff. And so I'm guilty of like, like hearing something and being like, I need to do that. Because those people are good at what they're doing, and I'm not saying they're wrong. It's just what's right for your business, right? Or you as an entrepreneur and your time frame, or your client, like what is really. So I definitely fell into that Pinterest trap of like, oh, I took a webinar and I'm like, oh, they said like 89% of people are ready to buy, like, so like, but it's like you can only do so much, and like you said, consistency is key. I don't know that I've achieved full consistency yet, but we're all works in progress, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. There's a quote that says you don't need to know more. You need to apply more. So just remind yourself of that the next time you're like, you want to click on something. You have a pretty good idea. It sounds like you know a lot. Go apply it. You already know it.
Yes.
Go apply it.
And I do know my market is women. And women, between the ages of 22 and I'd say, 49, I know women who want to shop, women who can, appreciate beauty. And so I know all that stuff, and I know that those people are on Facebook and Instagram, from doing some research, it's and more people are on Facebook than Instagram, which surprised me. Just more adults in general, but anyway, so I do have an email list, and I would love for any of your listeners to sign up. To be honest, I think email marketing is great. I struggle with consistency there as well. But part of that is just because, as we've been talking, you can tell I'm doing a lot. So it's just a matter. I need to make a content calendar, make a schedule, and really just knock it out. And then I've also I will do in-person. I've tried vendor fairs and stuff like that here locally. I have not yet exhibited at a larger trade show, but that's not off the table. So there's just so many ways to market, and so I think what I have found the most success with, I would say, would probably be social media. Honestly, I'll do Instagram sales and on stories, and that has been really just surprising to me, how much I can move the needle just by being hey, we have this on sale, DM me, kind of thing. So the other thing that's great is when I do make a sale, I have it all set up on the back end in terms of e-commerce for it to just push directly to my manufacturer. I do drop ship and made to order, so that has been really helpful to not have to worry about a whole lot of it does mean people will get they're not going to get it from Amazon Prime, it does mean it'll take a week or so, a week to 2 weeks to actually get it, but it makes me feel better too, just knowing I don't have to I can test the market. I can see what designs people are liking and what products they're liking those designs on. So, I think that social media has been great. And, I think email marketing too.
Which in a way, social media is the online networking. So I'm still seeing a theme here with both sides of the business that networking is just really key for you.
Yes, it is, and I think the
success behind your networking is your personality. So going back to kind of tying it all in, your brand, your brand is your personality. I think you said that earlier, and people are connecting with that, and they're connecting with you, and they're connecting with your art and your visuals and your products, and you've been able to be successful by kind of honing in on that, on your showing your personality in your brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. There's so much of me. I just can't be any other way that is involved in my relationships with my clients or customers. I say clients for the licensing side of things, but then customers, right? For the retail and products. Sure. But I definitely think that's what I was going to say too. Those vendor fairs and stuff I usually do pretty well because I can people are coming and they want something unique and they can meet the artist, and they can talk and I think that's key, to knowing your customer and knowing and feeling you're accessible, especially for a brand where you're building it on kind of who you are.
Well, you don't want to waste your time working with people who aren't the final decision makers, and they don't either. And right, and you're the decision maker, and they're the decision makers. So you put the decision makers together in the room, and things get done, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. We talked previously, and I asked you if you knew your Enneagram number. And since we're talking about personality, I would love to hear what your number is. And for those of you who don't know, Enneagram is, there's a test that you can take online to find out your Enneagram number, and it's basically, Enneagram is like the most freakishly accurate personality test that I've ever taken. And it's very involved. It's very in-depth. I've just scratched the surface of it by taking my test and getting my results and, just diving into I think it was like 18 pages of, explaining my number and my two wings.
Yeah, I don't know if I've determined my wings 100%, but I am a Enneagram 2, which is the helper, and they are very relationally based. Me. Relationship is very key, and they like to be needed. They like to help, obviously. I should say, everything is coming from like a very like relational, loving place, and so that's part of why you're probably not surprised, because that's part of why like I like to do care packages. During negotiations, I like to make sure everyone's feeling good, like everything I do is very much like, are we good relationally? Like, and then I read. I kind of read if I, like a gut feeling on people, when I first meet them, like if I feel like that plays into like who I want to work with, or who I want to, it's just kind of that relationship side of things. So, and then I just talked to one of my clients the other day, and I was just like, what do you need? Like, how can I help? Like, I'm here, and so, I think that's kind of what you get with me being an Enneagram 2. I have a suspicion that I'm that like my dominant wing is a 3, which is a performer, because I definitely have that side to me where I just haven't dug in too deep enough on the wing stuff to know for sure. But I think like based on my job before, like producing was it was performance based somewhat, and I think I can see, and they're achiever. I think the other title I've heard for it is like the achiever, and I definitely am pretty like I can be achievement oriented at times. Anyways, so that's what mine is. What's yours?
Yeah, that doesn't surprise. So I'm also a 2. Nice. So I'll read it out. It says generally 2s are caring, empathetic, warm, thoughtful, appreciative, generous, other-oriented, tactile, affectionate, well-intentioned, and demonstrative. But one of the things where 2s get into a little bit of trouble is that they kind of have a hard time with feelings of rejection. And I can imagine, especially with art, with your art, it's very personal, and there can be some feelings of rejection. How have you dealt with rejection that you've received thus far in either of your careers?
Oh, usually I cry. No. No, I mean, I'm not
That's
afraid
fine.
to cry. And you're right. You're absolutely right. And that's one of the things for anyone who doesn't know the Enneagram that is so great about it, is it kind of gives you the whole scale of like healthy to unhealthy, as well as like
it's
where
revealing.
you struggle and where you excel. And I just find it such a useful tool for like getting to know myself better and why I work the way I work. But so the question was, what tools have I used for rejection? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I have a very supportive, support system. And so I've got so I definitely am a talker as well, if you can't tell. So I usually do need to process with somebody, and I'm an extrovert. So to me, what that means is I need to externally process. Like I can't really like, I often don't know what I think until I've talked it out with someone or journaled it out or something.
I'm the same way.
So, yes. Yeah. So, like,
half the time when I'm teaching yoga, I'm like, oh, that just, whatever I just said helped me. Like, I'm helping myself just by verbalizing.
Exactly.
I'm trying to help other people because I'm a helper. Like, I'm teaching yoga because I want to help other people, but in like, what I get back from it is my own wisdom somehow teaches me right back.
Yeah. And then sometimes, too, one of our flaws, I guess, or things we struggle with can be to not, like, if people don't thank us, you know, then, like, it hurts or we resent it, you know. And so
you're like, wait, I just helped you. You should be thankful. Right. Like, we kind of expect something in return sometimes for going out of our way and being so helpful. Yeah. Okay.
But sometimes I have to go to that place of, like, you know, that is not, like, everybody's way of looking at things. And so when it comes to, like, rejection or honestly, and you're right, to me, rejection can look a lot of different ways. It can just be a no. It can be a not right now. Or it can be, like, no answer. Yeah. And so that I think is the one that is the hardest, you know, because I'm also a very, like, authentic, honest person. So I'm like, I can handle it. Like, even though I might be disappointed, it is almost worse to me to be misled or ghosted, you know, like, I would, it's probably because of the relationship side of too, but so I would rather just know, like just rip the Band-Aid off or just tell me, like, if it's not happening or if so but yeah, I definitely need to process, like, with people who are safe, which would be my best friend. She's also a creative. She's a musician, and we've learned that we process the same way. Like, she's also extroverted and needs to talk it out. So she's honestly one of my, you know, like we usually talk whenever she knows what's going on and vice versa, like, in our creative endeavors. But
that's funny because my person is our mutual friend. So for our listeners, the way that I know Beth is through a mutual friend. And so my person that I process too is that mutual friend of ours. Her name is Natalie. She's also a very creative person. And Natalie and I went to grad school together. And shout out to Natalie.
Yeah, Natalie. And Natalie and I went to undergrad together. So and then so just, I think, like, for me, and then, like, talking, and just, I think I have to, because I can go to a relational / emotional place sometimes. I mean, that is one thing I had to learn in TV is, like, not to have thick skin and to not, like, I was dealing with a lot of different personality types and oftentimes, like, men who don't necessarily realize that they have emotions. So I learned, not that they don't, just that they don't always know what to do when they have one, you know.
Right. When I have one.
And so, you know, so I was always kind of, as a producer and I was sort of like the caretaker, nurturing the crew and nurturing the people on camera. And I saw myself that way. And I think I did. I mean, not that I obviously had to get a story and kind of do my producerial jobs, if that's a word, but as well. But I think, you know, that was part of it, was, like, figuring out how to, like, you know, everyone has emotions, but so for me, like, I kind of turned off, like, the emotional side of things somehow because I had to. But now that you're so right about, like, I mean, my art is, like, it's, like, super vulnerable to put your art out there and then to potentially be rejected. Because I don't know that we've talked about this, but, like, I consider myself, I guess, closest to, like, an abstract expressionist, which not all my work is that, but it's more, abstract expressionism is more about expression and what's inside and painting and creating from what you're feeling. So versus a representational, you know, like, piece of art, like a flower or an apple or, you know, a person. And so for me, like, art has always been such a part of what's going on inside of me. And I've had to learn that and learn what that is and what, how to talk about it now. But so yeah, it's super vulnerable because I may have created that in a moment of, joy or fear or, whatever it was that I was needing the physical process of painting to release something. And so, yeah, it can be very vulnerable. But it's also, on the flip side, it is very rewarding when someone reacts in a positive way. Yeah. And that is, like, still to this day, like, when people, because that's just a stage of my career that I'm in, and I hope it never goes away, but when people respond to my art or to my products that have my art on them, or someone like I just signed a new licensing deal last week, which is huge because these don't happen. I mean, trust me, they don't happen every week. It's not like, and so
it's a time piece again. It takes a lot of time.
It does take time, and this is a little bit of a tangent from what I was just saying, but it does tie into us talking about the licensing. The company that I just signed with a deal with, I mean, we talked a year ago at High Point Market about doing something.
Wow.
And then I followed up, and they followed up, and we and then there was silence for like a long time, and that felt like rejection, so I guess it does tie in. I mean, it wasn't, and it wasn't that they were rejecting me. And turns out, it's just the timing wasn't there yet, for a lot of reasons in their business, not anything that had to do with me. Yeah. And so they came back to me when they were ready. And so I would say that too with feeling rejected is, and to the good point of keeping your emotions, having safe people to talk to, but not taking it out on the people that are rejecting you, because you never know. And
it's more about them usually than it is about you.
Yeah, yes.
That's what I try to tell myself anyways.
It might not truly be rejection. It may feel like rejection, but it may actually just be not the right fit, or just
it's like, what did I say? It's not a no, it's a not right now, or something like that.
Right. Which, I mean, as entrepreneurs and ones that are still figuring out how to make it, it's like every sale and every vote of confidence counts, and so it can feel really that much more heightened, I guess, to be rejected or accepted, but I would just say, I mean, I try to just talk to the people that I know are safe, but, never burn a bridge. I mean, even recently I had kind of I don't want to go into too many details, but I had a situation where I definitely felt kind of rejected. And I felt that the person my contact, I felt that they weren't being honest with me, and I found out in a way that wasn't direct. And so I ran through the gamut of like, I'm going to talk to them and say, I shouldn't have found out this information this way, and I'm going to, just not be, be businesslike, but I'm going to, and then I, slept on it and talked to the people in my life.
Can default to 8s under stress, which are the challengers. So that doesn't surprise me. That for a moment you thought about challenging them. Yeah.
I did, and I don't think I would have been wrong to do so, but I felt like in this situation, this is where it goes back to like trusting your intuition and relationships. It's like I didn't feel that would necessarily be the best response for this person, because I felt that this person might do more damage, honestly, to my reputation. And so, and nothing, I mean, it's not, I'm not trying to make this sound dramatic. It's just, there's a lot of different personalities in the world, and people handle conflict and or disagreement differently. And it's okay. But the thing is that I'm really glad I didn't know, because handle the rejection that way, where I essentially like not told them off, but basically chastised them for the way that they communicate, and it's like that really, I think it's important to have like people that you can talk to that actually aren't understand enough about you and or your business that they can give a good advice, but aren't like so in it that you're gonna like that like they're gonna be like, yeah, like you kind of need somebody to play devil's advocate.
Well, absolutely, and I try to be
for
that
some people
for my
it's a spouse
clients.
or
I try to be that for my clients because a lot of times I find that business owners are just too close to it because your business is so personal, whether it's art or anything. And so it's very, very hard to see any flaws and the other side of things sometimes. And I sometimes might be the devil's advocate or the bearer of bad news, but I always try to take and this came up in another podcast, sometimes you just have to remove the emotion and kind of strip down the situation and be like, what are we left with right now and how do we proceed with just using this bit of information, what would be best for everybody. Okay, wrapping up here, I want to just kind of regroup and talk about the ingredients that you mentioned for success. And again, I'm going to bring this up to my listeners that if you've listened to any of the other podcasts, we're not really getting into a ton of new things, which has surprised me the most from starting this podcast, is that it's the same stuff that comes up. So it must mean that it's really important, that these ingredients to success are extremely important. So one is that as an entrepreneur, you are putting yourself out there in a way that makes you vulnerable. And because of that, you're going to need thick skin. Yes. In terms of branding, a lot of people are relying on their personality or have to rely or do rely or realize that it comes back to a lot that has to do with your personality. So I think knowing yourself and being authentic and true to yourself is really important as well. Time. It takes time to build your brand. We live in an immediate gratification society. Everybody wants it now. And people start out their business thinking, I just talked with a potential client the other day and they're really not doing well, yet they expected me to get them results in 3 months. And I just kind of laughed because I'm looking at their website, which is an all-out disaster, and I'm looking at all these other things, and I'm like, that's just not the way it works. You're not going to be able to realistically turn yourself around in that short amount of time. But I think if they could tell me that I had to do it, then they didn't have to be at fault when it didn't happen. I would be at fault, which is definitely one of the lows in the work that I do. Is I can take that blame. But needless to say, I'm not working with that client because they wanted results in 3 months, and I sent them a proposal, and they couldn't even get back to me. And I followed up, and it's like, okay, well, you have a time issue because if you want something done, then you need to be proactive and you need to be responsive and you need to keep the ball rolling here. But anyhow, again, one of those situations where I could have felt totally rejected, but I realize this is like they have the time issue. But building a brand, building a business takes time. And then, for you, some of the marketing strategies were trade shows. And that's how my first job in marketing was organizing, attending trade shows and everything that goes into trade shows. So I can respect that. And networking and social media. And then the one thing that I think I seriously want to run out and get a mentor because I don't have one. And that came up in the last podcast as well. And it came up now with you, that it sounds like you had a really good mentor, and you still do have a really good mentor. That's been a huge piece to your puzzle.
Yeah, I should actually mention, so I mentioned my aunt, who I definitely consider a mentor. And then I do have another mentor. I did a business accelerator in the fall of 2018 and got connected with a mentor, and we have continued to meet. And so, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Like, I mean, she's this other mentor is a commercial interior designer, so she's just so valuable for like helping me walk through things about the home furnishings industry and business, because she's a business owner as well. But And I think because she has a design mind as well, not that my aunt is wonderful too, but I wanted to say, yes, I definitely think if you can go get a mentor. I mean, it's so funny because you're like, how do I get one of those?
Yes, I know.
And so I think some people it's like very formal, and other people it's just like it naturally develops. So, but then there's like companies out there, not companies, or like organizations maybe that will kind of just help the entrepreneurial community get plugged in that way. So get yourself a mentor.
Yeah. Yes. I'm gonna work on that, and then I'll let listeners know how it goes. So Beth, tell everybody where they can find you online, where they can follow you on social media.
Sure. Okay. So 2 places that I would point people to. JoyFireDesigns.com is if you're interested in products. I have journals and yoga pants and phone cases and, of course, wallpaper and pillows and all kinds of stuff. So that's for products. And then BethGloverCreates.com is really the catch-all for like all the creative work I do. So I also teach online art classes. I've been doing that since COVID, started, but I had already been doing local workshops and stuff, as well as I teach kids art, and I'm sort of doing a lot of different things in the creative world. And then I'm going to start selling originals and limited run prints through that site. So that's why I mentioned that.
Nice.
So, and both of those are the same for Instagram. So Beth Glover Creates and JoyFire Designs. I'd say I'm more active on Beth Glover Creates right now because I'm just making more art, so I post it kind of regularly.
Great,
there,
and I'll put the links.
Yes.
I'll put the links in the comments so everybody can find
Thanks
them. But
so
I
much.
just wanted to hear it firsthand. So, Beth, this has been a wonderful conversation. I am super excited to know you. I feel like I know you now because we're both twos. So even though I don't really know you, I can kind of understand you.
Yes.
And,
agreed.
Yes. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me tonight. I really enjoyed our conversation. I wish you all the best of luck, and hopefully we can have you on the podcast again sometime.
That would be great, Jill. Thank you so much. It was so fun to talk to another two and another business person.
Okay, listeners, I just wanted to remind you of a weekly contest. If you subscribe to the podcast, take a screenshot and share it on social media showing that you have subscribed. Tag at Vera Creative and 2 friends. That's VIRACREATIVE. Tag 2 friends. You are automatically entered. We give away a Starbucks gift card every week. Keep entering. Keep listening. Thanks, guys.